Okay. All right, great. We can officially begin now. Welcome to the Zeta information session hosted by the Samuel Engineering Undergraduate Research Program. My name is Will Herrera. I am director of both the undergraduate research and the undergraduate internship program here at the school. I put a link into the chat, so if you don't mind, if you could please just click on that link to mark your attendance, to mark your presence here. And I'm going to hand it over to Associate Dean Wessel, who is one of the co-hosts for this Zeta research and internship opportunity. So Dean Wessel, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Will. I just want to mention that it's been my experience with the chat, Will, that people who enter the Zoom meeting after you put something in the chat don't see it. So maybe you can put the link in one more time.
Yes, I will do that every time somebody comes in.
Yeah, I know Claire just joined. So Will is putting a link in the chat for you guys to sign in. That you've attended this information session, which is a good idea. It's a way for us to be able to get back in touch with you and let you know about steps in the hiring process or in the interview process. Okay, so, well, I'm just gonna mention briefly that this is a really neat collaboration that's going on between my research group, the Communication Systems Laboratory, and Zeta Associates, a company that does some really interesting work in communication systems. And I really think that this collaboration started because a longtime colleague of mine in this area and a friend of mine, we met at a conference and reconnected, and that's Bill Ryan. And we're both really interested in kind of the same or there's a set of common interests that we have in communications that makes it easy for us to make that connection. And so the way that this works is that you will be if you're hired into this program, you'll work in my research group for 2 quarters, the winter quarter and the spring quarter, as an undergraduate researcher, and we'll have you do projects in the group that kind of get you up to speed a little bit, or at least get the wheels spinning, so that when you show up at the Zeta Corporation, and let's hope the pandemic is over and you get to go to Denver, because it's a great place to be, really nice environment with a lot of opportunities for you to have some fun during the summer, as well as just meet new people. So hopefully the pandemic is over. If not, then you would work remotely the way that the interns did this summer. But the idea is that when you start that internship, you're already ready to go. You don't have to spend 3 or 4 weeks, figuring out the very first stuff. You'll have gotten familiar with some of the software involved, using laptops that Zeta will provide while you're in the internship. So I think it's a really great opportunity for an undergraduate to get up to speed, to have a good internship. And when you come back from the internship, you'll have the opportunity to continue to work in my group if you want to. And when you come back to work in my research group, you'll be even more ready, to do more complicated research. So I think I've talked past my allotted, 1 minute. So I'll pass it over to Shiyun and the Zeta team to take you through some more information about this opportunity. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dean Wessel. So I'm Shiyun Park. I work for Zeta Associates out in the Denver area, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the opportunity and also give you a little bit of an overview of our company. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end of this, and I will just forewarn my fellow Zetans that are out there. I'll ask you guys to all give a short intro of who you are and what your research interests are, just to give a sense of what we do for the students. Okay, so let's go on to slide number 2. So Zeta is a medium-sized company. We have about 450 employees. About 60 of them are in the Denver area. Our main office is in Fairfax. We were founded back in 1984, And the most of our contracts are classified contracts with the government, and we have a really good reputation, and so we have not usually had to worry about competitions. We tend to get problems handed to us. About 5 years ago, in 2015, we became acquired by Lockheed Martin. We maintain our autonomy as a wholly owned subsidiary, but we do also have the Lockheed Martin connection, which has proven to be a great resource for us, where we can reach across all of the facilities and people that Lockheed has. And just to give you a short overview of the technology that we go after, we're basically a signal processing company. We do primarily software for digital communications and radar. We do a lot of scientific computing, data science, and machine learning. But also related to that, we have system engineering. We also run the machines that we run on. So we have a significant portion of our employees are network and web and distributed infrastructure software developers. So things like Kubernetes and all the cloud infrastructure. And there's a short graphic that should be fairly accurate even now of the breakdown of our company in terms of education. So you'll see the majority of our employees have graduate degrees, and we encourage people to continue their education, and that's one of the reasons why we're really excited to work with Dean Wessel and the university. We believe in fostering talent and also employee growth. So let's go on to the next slide. And I mentioned just in terms of our facilities, our main office is in Fairfax, Virginia, and we do have a significant presence in Denver. We do have scattered employees throughout the world, but most of our employees, and most likely when you start off, you would either be starting either in Denver or Fairfax. We don't have to talk about the manufacturing, so let's go on to the next slide, and we'll talk about the summer internship program. So let's go on to slide 5. So the application process, this is the information system or information session, and you should have a link where you can submit your completed application and resume and transcripts to Professor Wessel by November 20th. So that's just in a couple of weeks. Once we have your transcripts and resumes, we will schedule remote technical interviews, and once we have narrowed things down, there will also be a final phone interview with HR. We've tried, like Professor Wessel said, we're trying to get things started so that in the winter quarter, starting in January, you would be working with him and his group. And so we're going to make our hiring decisions in early December. So probably within a week or two after the interviews, you will find out whether you've been selected or not. Then once we have that selection, we'll send out the official offer letters, but we'll also contact you informally as well. And once you have the offer letter, you'll have 1 week to review and provide a response. I will say, okay, let's go on to the next slide, 6. I think Dean Wessel did a good job of explaining the layout. During the winter and spring quarters, you'll be working at UCLA under the guidance of Professor Wessel, and then in the summer quarter, you will work either here in Denver or potentially in Fairfax. More than likely, it will be in Denver, but we do have people in Fairfax that are interested and are always looking for talent. And at the end of the summer, we try to get all the interns together where you present your projects and you also get to see what your fellow interns do. We will keep all the UCLA interns in sort of a cadre where you will be working in under a single project. But at the end of the summer, it's sort of nice to see what other people have done, and it's a nice way to advertise throughout our company on the things that you've learned. During the fellowship portion, undergraduate students will receive approximately $2,200 a quarter. So that's a fellowship, and that is going to be supervised by Professor Wessel. And then during the summer, you'll be paid $25 an hour for if you're an undergraduate. I don't know if there are any graduate students in the audience, but if there are, you get a $5 an hour bump. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. I think it's a great opportunity for students to learn about not just our company, but about the industry, especially if you're not sure if you want to go into electrical engineering or engineering in general. We provide you a sort of a glimpse on what a career is like out in industry. We'll provide a clear description of what's expected out of you. We'll try to establish learning objectives and developmental skill goals. And we have weekly mentoring sessions with students to help answer questions and provide any guidance. We will have some structure. Last year, we followed an agile software development model, and more than likely, we will continue to do that. And then at the end of the internship in the summer, our hope is that everyone will have had a great experience, and we would want to continue to work with each other. Jacob King, who's a student who was an intern last summer, he was offered a full-time position with us once he finishes his education, and we are sponsoring him in a fellowship for the fall quarter. And Jacob will talk a little bit about his experience at the end of this session. And last summer, in addition to Jacob, we offered 3 other students a full-time offer. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about what we did last summer with out in Denver. So out in Denver, we had 2 students from UCLA, and we also had 2 students from the Colorado School of Mines. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we were not able to fly and relocate people from UCLA down to out to Denver. We're hoping that by the time summer rolls around, that travel restrictions will ease and we will all get to be physically co-located. But if not, we'll do what we did last summer and work remotely, and just have to be flexible and adapt to the times. So let's go ahead to slide number 9. So last summer, what the overall theme was to learn about 5G cell phone technology. And I played the role of a customer where I said, I live out in farm country, and my cell service isn't great, and I would love to have an app or some sort of ability to figure out where the nearest cell tower is, so that I can start walking towards it and holding up my phone and increasing my number of bars. So we provided the students software-defined radios and Linux laptops. The local students mostly dealt with the SDRs, but we did provide laptops to all students. And in the process, the students learned about signal processing and software methods to detect and locate the 5G tower. We learned a little bit about the standards behind the cell phone technology and also the software processes. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. So this was put together by the students, where they decided that they're going to have 2 or 3 SDRs that are located, and they were going to take some timing measurements, and from that try to create detect the presence of the tower, send those measurements to a central measurement server, and from there try to figure out where the tower was, and then to visualize the results. So let's go on to slide 11. And they were successful. They did a really good job of learning the technology, working with the SDRs. They went out into our parking lot, and we put up a signal that simulated a 5G cell tower and then did the location estimation. And in addition to doing all that signal processing, we had software people who put things into a Kibana dashboard using an elk stack and helped with the visualization. So you can see they put some dots on a map and put some error ellipse confidence intervals around the estimated location. So it was fun for us and for the students. Let's move on to slide 12. And then in particular for the UCLA students, like Dean Wessel was saying, we spent two quarters working and learning about the 5G standards, learning a little bit about the code that we were using, and also learning about communication and coding theory. In particular, the students deep dived into polar codes and also learned about OFDM modulation. And I think that is it for this overview. And I'm going to hand it over to Jacob King, where he can talk in more detail about his experience. Take it away, Jacob.
I'm Jacob King. I was part of the Zeta Fellowship and Internship for the last year, and I'm continuing it this year. I just have a couple of quick slides to show about some of the projects I worked on and my experience with them. I need you to stop sharing your screen so I can share mine. There we go. All right, can you guys see that? All right. So I started out 2 quarters in Professor Wessel's Communication Systems Laboratory. Learned a lot of great stuff in that. As you can see on the screen, things like convolutional coding, encoding, decoding, doing that with cyclic redundancy checks or CRCs, and how to generate these error rate curves to compare the performance of these. My main project for last year was writing a encoder and decoder for this convolutional code and implement them into a simulator so I could generate these bit error rate and block error rate curves. This year, I am continuing to run simulations of convolutional codes, specific class of tail-biting codes this time. And I will also be working with Hongjae Yang with his work on estimating expected list size for these codes. And now at Zeta, I had multiple projects that I worked on. The first one was continuing what I did in Professor Wessel's lab with these coding simulations, this time including polar codes as well, to see how these convolutional polar codes compare to each other at different values. And also wrote a specific function for the polar codes where the bits are kind of interleaved together in order to match what is done in 5G. My second main project was I wrote a PSS generator, which is a specific signal, again, in the 5G standards. Wrote that script in Python. And in this process, I learned a ton about OFDM, as was said before, as well as pseudo noise sequences. So a lot of great stuff I learned over this time. And then finally, the Elysium project, which is what Shiyun was describing earlier. This was a big project that all the interns were working on together. My specific part of this project was creating a graphical user interface so that we could run the system in a much easier way. You can see the results of what I worked on screen, where you can just select your options and click start, and then it does its magic in the background and will pop up with the information about the nearest cell location. Overall, the experience I had with this was very, very positive. I learned a ton of signal processing and coding theory concepts over this that I had very little experience with before, honestly speaking, but I learned so much. A ton of interesting problems I got to work out, specifically within industry, I've learned how working on a team, of other interns, doing agile development, as Sheehan said earlier. And then everyone I worked with, Professor Wessel, Bill Ryan, Sheehan, Brandon, all of them were great mentors. I learned so much from them. It's a great experience. That's all I have.
So thanks a lot, Jacob. I want to give a little context sort of from the professor point of view about how it was useful for us to interface with Zeta and to work with Jacob. So we've developed a certain approach, these convolutional codes with list decoding, that we think are going to provide a benefit as compared to what's currently being used in 5G for actual systems. But in order to really make the case and write a paper that would be convincing to the academic community and the industry community, we really have to kind of show it in situ, show our coding technique in the real world, and compare it fairly with the existing 5G system. And from my point of view, Zeta is a real asset for us to be able to do that, because they have a software radio system for an entire 5G software radio. And one of the things that we're working on is dropping in fact, Jacob made a lot of progress on this, dropping in the convolutional coding with list decoding into the existing 5G system so that we'll be able to do those comparisons. And that's, so one of the main goals for us during this academic year is for Jacob to do that comparison, as well as working on this theoretical and very important problem of computing these expected list sizes, which it sounds like it's just, what is that, a theoretical metric, but it turns out that the list size of the convolutional code directly affects its practical decoding complexity, how long you have to wait to get the answer, and how much processing power you have to assign to getting the answer. So it turns out that it's all connected in sort of this long-term vision we have of showing the practical benefit of a particular type of coding that we've developed. All right, I think that was, again, too much, but I just wanted to tie it in that there was this overall program, so not just the internship program, but the overall relationship between Zeta and UCLA. My hope is that it both allows us to demonstrate the value in the commercial world for the ideas that we are developing, and also helps us as researchers to develop ideas that actually matter. As opposed to, it turns out, one of the things about academia is you can publish a paper about almost anything. So all you have to do to publish a journal paper is solve a problem, okay? So, but there are problems that matter, and problems that might matter someday in the distant future. And by working closely with companies like Zeta, it helps our lab solve problems that actually matter, like in the relatively near future. So I'm really excited about the collaboration. I hope we're able to continue it with some of the undergraduates that have joined us for this call. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Dean. Yes, we're excited too. Just mirroring what Professor Wessel said, we on our side we really appreciate having the access to the communications lab at UCLA, and really working with cutting edge technology in helping us solve our problems. So before we start our Q&A session, I'm going to ask my fellow Zeta people to give a brief intro of themselves. And I'll start off with Brandon Erickson. He's going to be the coordinator for the Denver interns, and also the immediate supervisor. So Brandon, do you mind talking a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, I can do that. So Brandon, I work a lot with the interns. I did an undergraduate degree in physics at the University of Colorado, And then I did a PhD in physics at the University of Michigan. Then I came out into the real world. I worked for Northrop Grumman for 6 years, where I did a number of things. I started off designing antennas, and then I did space weather forecasting, which is mostly about the ionosphere and measurements from the sun. And then I went and worked for an oil company for a little bit, and it was kind of interesting. I did some machine learning stuff, but it was not as fun as the kind of problems you do, I think, in the defense industry. So then I came to Zeta because back when I had worked at Northrop, I had learned of Zeta as working on some of the coolest and hardest problems. Unfortunately, I got hired, so I've been working for Zeta for about 2 years now, doing some of these signal processing type problems. I work on kind of the operational equivalent of what Sheehan showed, where there are signals and you detect them and then you put these dots on a map because it's frequently interesting to know where things are. So that's pretty much what I do. It's a lot of algorithm development, computing, signal processing type stuff. Sometimes trying to, find new ways of doing things. Sometimes it's understanding stuff that's been done for a long time, because a lot of times when people put years and years into problems, they do it really, really well, but the code can be huge and complex, and it can be a pretty big deal to understand how it all works. That's probably all that's interesting about me for now. I don't know, who else do we have on the line? I'm too dumb to operate Zoom to see all the people available to pass it to next.
So if Bill Ryan's available, do you mind speaking next, Bill?
Sure. Can you hear me okay? I don't have a microphone or anything.
Yes, we can hear you just fine, Bill.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So yes, I'm at Zeta, and I've been with Zeta for around 9 years. And before that, I was a professor for 18 years. And as Professor Wessel mentioned, we got to know each other from conferences, and then he actually invited me to teach a number of courses at the UCLA Extension. So I got to know Rick, and we have many common interests in research. But I like what he said earlier. I noticed we both like to solve problems that are useful, at least in the near future. I noticed that about Rick's papers, and I have similar approaches to doing research. But that research area is communication theory, and also error correction coding, and sometimes signal processing. And for Zeta right now is I design software-defined radios, but I also design waveforms, digital communication waveforms for software-defined radios. And if you like mathematics and computing, Zeta is a great company for you. That's sort of the short version, my short sales pitch of what Zeta is about. There's a lot of computing, and there's a lot of opportunity for those who like mathematics applied to real problems, in particular signal processing and communications types of problems. Okay.
Thanks, Bill. And Bill is going to be supervising with Professor Wessel during the quarters and also during the summer, and he'll be involved intimately with the UCLA interns.
That's right.
Is Eric York on?
Just real quick, I should mention I did supervise Jacob for a couple months in the summer.
Great, Eric. Do you mind talking a little bit about yourself?
No, not at all. I'm Eric York. I have a PhD in mathematics with a specialty in coding theory. So I was really glad when Bill joined the company. I study turbo codes a lot, and different kinds of codes, convolutional codes, and really all kinds. Lately, I've been doing a lot of research in AI, machine learning type stuff for speech processing, playing around with PyTorch and developing algorithms in that. So that's, I'm not as long-winded as everybody else. That's all I have to say. So, yeah.
Thanks, Eric. And Eric is based out in Fairfax, so potentially there's an opportunity. There's potentially an opportunity to work with him out in Virginia if things work out. Is there anyone else on the line that would like to introduce themselves?
I think we covered everybody. Maybe it's time to
Yeah, I
transition
don't think so.
to Q&A.
Sounds good. I'll hand it over
All
to
right,
you,
so
William.
yeah, thank you. So students, looks like we have about, I think, 9 or 10 students in the audience. So you've heard kind of a great review and overview of, the research that's happening, the work that Zeta has done in the past with Dean Wessel's lab. And, you heard directly from Jacob, who is, again, an undergrad, just like all of you. He's in his senior year. He's about to graduate. And so he did research last year, did his summer internship last year at Zeta, even I don't think, Jacob, you didn't mention, but it was done remotely, right? Is my understanding.
Yeah.
Did you bring
Yeah.
that up? I didn't catch that.
No, I didn't bring that up, but yeah, because of COVID-19, the internship I did at Zeta was remote.
Right. And so there is even, we don't know where we're going to be in the future. Obviously, hopefully, like Dean Wessel says, by next summer, we'll be able to do an in-person internship at either in Denver or Fairfax. But even if the in-person thing is not available, there is still a remote opportunity available. So you've heard a great overview. You've heard from the Zeta team. And so I think it's a good time for all of you to, raise your hand, unmute your mic, and ask any questions about the research, about the company, about Jacob's experience from a student perspective, Dean Wessel's from the research lab perspective. Any questions at all? This would be a good time to ask. I don't mind having these awkward moments of silence, because I found from the classes I'm teaching that if I wait long enough, somebody will eventually unmute their mic or raise their hand and ask a question.
Okay.
Battle of wills.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask Andrew Lee to unmute. Andrew, are you there?
Hey, sorry, I was plugging in my mic into my headset.
Yeah, no problem. So Andrew, what year are you?
I'm currently a third year.
A third year. So why don't you ask the Zeta people, if they're interested in hiring third years?
Oh, I actually had a different question.
Go for it.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask, I noticed on we got the email from William about the kind of prerequisites sort of thing, like CS31, EC 131A, and another course, I don't remember the number. So aside from those sorts of things, are there any other things we would need to know from the start, as opposed to what would be supported or taught or learned on the job?
That's a great question, Andrew. That's actually a very common question I get from a lot of undergrads who are seeking research opportunities for the first time. So thanks for being prompted, being voluntold, like I like to say, to ask a question. So anybody from maybe Dean Wessel or Jacob or anybody wants to take that question on?
I'll start from the point of view of the research part, because you sort of began your time in this program in my group. And the classes really are a great starting point. So we ask that you be able to program, so I've taken CS31, probably know a little bit of MATLAB or can learn it if you've taken CS31, and that you've taken probability. The other class, 132A, communication systems, that's a bonus. It'll really help if you've taken it, but you don't have to have it. We'll teach you that stuff as we go. And so that's what I think Jacob can also speak to, that experience about what did he know before he showed up versus what he learned. We have my group. Well, actually, I think this is about UCLA engineering as a whole, that we really try to build this spirit of, everybody is a mentor and you want to reach out, and everybody is a mentee. And so, when you join my group, you'll end up learning from another person. For the people who are here, if you join, you're going to learn a lot from Jacob, and you'll learn from me, and you'll learn from my graduate students. There'll be somebody assigned actually to help you learn a specific task or a specific topic, because it's the topic that they happen to be the most passionate about that month, because it's something they're working on and they're very close to. And I think at some point we had Jacob talk to another one of my former undergraduate researchers, Ethan Liang, about his list decoding software, because it was closely related to what Jacob was doing. So it's a long-winded answer, but no, you don't need to know anything beyond those classes.
Rick, I would add digital signal processing.
Oh, yes. Digital signal processing is the other side of the coin. So classes like 102 and 113 are also very useful. So for the other half of the work, like for example, the signal processing related to finding the cell tower, a lot of that is 102, 113 type of stuff. Jacob, can you talk about what classes you found most useful when you were at Zeta?
Yeah, I was basically waiting for you to finish up so I could start talking about that. So yeah, when I started out in the research lab, 102, signals and systems is definitely very good. Probability, and then knowing how to program is, all three of those things are like very important, especially knowing how to program, because that's going to be a lot of the stuff you're doing. As I said, 113 digital signal processing and 132A communication systems are both very, very helpful. I actually hadn't taken either of them when I was interviewing for this last year, but I took them in spring, and they were both hugely useful for the internship over the summer. So I recommend both of those. Then kind of a curveball, but actually Math 110A is actually very useful because it's the math that governs CRCs and convolutional code, CRCs and coding theory. And so that's not necessary at all. That's just a fun coincidence I had because it allowed me to immediately pick up on a concept when I was working with Professor Wessel. But yeah, the main 113 and 132A are going to be very, very useful, but it's okay if you haven't taken them yet.
Thank you for reaffirming that, Jacob. That and this what's nice about this Zeta opportunity is that you get 2 quarters of doing research on campus before you transition into the summer internship. And so, there's like what Jacob knew before he started doing the research, and then what he learned, during those 2 quarters of starting and on-ramping and doing the research. And so, like you mentioned, he didn't take those courses until spring, which, was already 1 quarter into the research opportunity. And so, there's like prerequisites that are required before, and then there's what you can learn along the way. So thanks for sharing that, Jacob.
I'll add from a Zeta perspective, something that we find the students struggle with is we do a lot of, because we want to create products, we do a lot of software development, and our software development is on Linux machines. So we found that usually the first week or two, a lot of students have never seen Linux before, and struggle a little bit on getting around. So that's useful. It's not terribly hard, but if you do have a chance to get onto an Ubuntu machine or some flavor of Linux, that is usually useful. And just in general, we're looking for people who are intellectually curious, who are interested in working on teams and working on problems, working on not just the things that are assigned to them, but seeing what bring their creativity to the problem. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I think intellectual curiosity is really important. I'd agree with that, Sheehan.
I think we should mention that, while my research group welcomes any student, regardless of their background, that working at Zeta Corporation, I think US citizenship is a factor. So I just wanted to mention that, that that this may not be the right opportunity for you if you're not a U.S. citizen. So.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Dean Wessel, because that's something that does come up a lot with our international student population. So I'm glad you brought that up. There was another question actually specifically to Dean Wessel's lab. And I got this in the Engineering 24 class where I was promoting this info session, Dean Wessel. And one of the students says that they didn't feel that they qualified because they hadn't taken, this was a younger student, a freshman student, hadn't taken CS31 or that first EE course. And so they're like, and they asked basically, are there other research opportunities where they can join your lab on another project, and like after they take those courses, then formally apply maybe next year or in the future to the Zeta opportunity? And so that was kind of a more directed question at you, Dean Wessel.
Sure. And if I can share my screen for a second.
Absolutely.
I'll just show, I was talking about this before this meeting began. So there's sort of, if you go to my research group, and I'll share my screen. It's this one. Okay. So here's our research group web page. And if you go to this, our research group, you can see these are our, there are some people who we have to add, but these are our undergrad. Yeah, I have 3 doctoral students, and it looks like here we've got 13 undergraduates, but there are some that might be missing. But some of these, like Nico and Rita, were freshmen who joined us over the summer, and there's Jacob. So I do have, like Beryl came in as a freshman, and so there are opportunities, but I think, we are getting close to capacity. So the number of additional opportunities beyond the 2 opportunities for the Zeta Corporation, it's not unlimited. But if you're interested, feel free to send me an email, with your resume, and we'll set up a time to talk. And if it's a good fit, then we can do something like that. But yes, people join my research group as undergraduates at all 4 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, as long as it's a good fit, and if it's not a good fit, sometimes, you either don't join or you join the group and a month later you say, you know what, this was not what I wanted. And that is another thing that, I don't want to waste anybody's time. So if you're not interested, just work for a different professor. But if you join the group and you realize that you're not interested, as an undergraduate, as far as I'm concerned, that's fine. It doesn't hurt my feelings. And, it's just free, just don't feel awkward about it. Just say, you know what, this isn't working after all. And you can go work for a different professor that it's just a better fit. So that's another, I encourage you to just go and reach out to professors, offer your services, let them know you're interested. And people will let you know that, if they have room, they'll offer positions. So that's the story. So it's not impossible, but I only have a few more spots. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Dean Wessel. So back to the students in the audience. Any other questions for the Zeta team? Are we gonna have to randomly call on somebody again? All right, I don't see any. If you're a little shy, it's okay.
I have a question for the students.
Good.
So why did you come to this session, and what are you looking for?
That is a great question. So we have.
Let's start with Luke. Luke, hi. How you doing?
Hello, Professor Wessel. Is it working?
Yeah, it's working great.
We can
yeah.
hear you just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a lecture at my signal processing class at 6. I have an hour before. I saw this email about the INFOSESSION about this company with my professor. So I was curious what was going on. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm an international student, so I'm excluded. So I was just enjoying what was going on.
Okay, thank you, Luke. Jack?
Hi. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. I decided to join this info session because it seemed like an interesting opportunity, and I'm in a probability this quarter. I'm in your class, and if this lab is a way to apply what we learn in probability to real world applications, that seems interesting to me. And I've taken classes like 102 and 113, and I'm going to take 132A next quarter. I want to join this info session, see how we can apply things we learn in that class to real world. And it seems like an opportunity for that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
David Cow?
Hi. I'm mostly here because I think Professor Wessel dropped a link to our class forum, 131A. And I feel like Professor Wessel is the type of professor who really cares about his students. So, if he's pushing something, it's probably pretty solid. So I just wanted to come and check it out.
So what are you interested in communication systems, David?
Yes, I've taken a few signal processing classes like 102, 113, and I'm going to be in 132A next quarter. And right now I develop a signal processing project for IEEE. So yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely it seems like a really interesting opportunity, this research plus Zeta internship, I think.
Super, thank you, David. Hi, Shake, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I think you might have, I'm sorry if you're an international student, right?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not. I'm sorry. So this is, okay, forgive me. Super. So are you interested in, yeah, I see Luke is laughing at me anyway, so does this sound like something you'd be interested in?
Yes, I'm actually very interested in this opportunity. I'm in general interested in signal processing, and I've taken 102, 113, and this quarter I'm taking 131A and 114. So yeah, I really would want to be considered for this opportunity.
Fantastic, Shake. It sounds like you've got all the right classes. And are you enjoying probability?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay.
Maybe Dean Wessel, maybe this is a good time to, especially if Shake is interested in just reiterating to the group how they can apply if they are interested.
Oh yeah. So we'll actually I've had it up on if you go to my UCLA, there's the research portal, and I posted this on the research portal a while ago, and we'll put it up in the chat again, and I will go ahead and put it in the chat now in case somebody joined after, because the chat's a little finicky about that. If you come late, you don't get to see the earlier chats. So here is this is the link to the research portal. I'm pretty sure, and if I click on the link, and
then once you're in the portal, you just have to search, right? You just have to search for like Dean Wessel's lab, and you'll see a description of the opportunity and also the instructions on how to apply.
Which boils down to sending an email to me and Will Herrera with your application materials, your resume. If you have any trouble with it, just send me an email and I'll make sure that you know what you need to do. but it's not surprising. Resume, unofficial transcript, a writing sample, which can just be something you've written in a lab report, or somewhere where you just show us that you can put sentences together with a linear flow of thought. Yeah, so great. I'm glad to hear you're interested, Shake.
Yeah,
Andrew?
thank you.
Yeah. Andrew.
Hello. I was actually in the middle of watching the last video for the lecture from today. It definitely ran a little longer than I thought. But yeah, took 102 in the spring. I was actually really interested in sort of the signal processing world. And I actually wanted to get involved in some research this quarter, but I wanted to be confident in that I didn't want to flake out on the professor. So I wanted to make sure my time management was okay with it. I just came here to really learn about the research, and also it came with an added internship at the end. So I thought that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, I just want to say, when you're thinking about doing research as an undergraduate, when you begin that process with a professor, you don't have to worry about flaking out as long as you're transparent up front about you're dipping your toe in, you want a little bit. Because, well, I mean, if you join the Zeta program, it's a little different because you're funded and there's a higher expectation. But in general, if you're just doing research with a professor, it's kind of like the more you come back, the more you get. Like, a professor will give you something to work on, and if you never come back and haven't done anything, then that is your research experience with that professor. But when you get a little problem to work on, and then you come back and say, well, I thought about it, this is what I did, I wrote a little code, I have an answer, then I get excited. I'm like, okay, great, now let's try to go take it this next step. And you get deeper and deeper into it. And pretty soon, I have a pretty good track record that if you get interested, that we'll get a conference paper written, because eventually you're going to come up with something that's worth writing about. So yeah, but I guess the point is that you can dip your toe in and start the connection without, like, you're not committing to 40 hours a week at the beginning. You're committing to sort of beginning a journey.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Dean Wessel, because I think that's another common question from undergrads who are kind of worried about getting started doing research. And I get a very common question is about how many hours a week are expected of me, especially if, like in this opportunity with Zeta, they're getting paid to do research, right? So it's a bit more of a commitment than just starting a volunteer research opportunity in a research lab. So thank you so much for addressing that.
I just want to mention that the $2,200 per quarter, where that number comes from is a rough expectation that if you're in that program, you're going to be working about 10 hours a week. And you're getting paid $22 an hour, roughly. It's a stipend, so it's not exact. You're not filling out a time card. But we are flexible. And if you're, for an undergraduate researcher, the first thing I tell all the undergraduate researchers is your first job is to get A's in your classes. The last thing I want is for you to be working on your program the night before a midterm and bomb the midterm. That's not what we're after. This is supposed to be something that you do on top of doing great in your classes. So that one way you can think about it is, well, you're getting paid this money for about 10 hours a week. And that might mean, 2 hours during midterm week, but maybe, 16 or 18 hours during a time, like during a break when your classes have settled down and you're excited about a problem, you can feel comfortable about putting in the time to, deliver a result. And at the end, actually in all of the jobs that you do, but certainly when you're doing research for a professor, I don't know how many hours people are working for me. How would I ever know that? And, I have heard about some professors who actually track it, but that's like, that is the worst professor to work for, right? So I'm not going to know how many hours you worked. All I'm going to know is, did you get anything done? Do you have any results? And so, a lot of it is that, are you intellectually curious enough? Do you want to get to the bottom of something so that we've got a result? And then, you know, once you get the first result, then things just seem to start flowing after that. So we're down to, I think it's Johan Chang and
Yeah.
Claire. Johan, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Good.
So one of the reasons why I joined the presentation tonight was because I'm a transfer student, and I got into UCLA this year, so I'm super excited. But all this internship stuff is kind of new to me, so I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So I find that going to like different research presentations, internship presentations over the weeks has been good for me. I'm kind of like dipping my toes into the process. I've sent out some resumes, so that's the reason why I'm here today. And on the topic of signal processing communications, what Zeta does, I'm currently working on a paper for self-driving vehicles, and signal communications is a big factor in that. So um, I haven't done a lot of classes that were recommended. I think I did one out of the three. So I'll be looking into that as well. And actually, I did have a question for the gentleman at Zeta who are presenting, or I guess Jacob as well. What motivates you to wake up in the morning, and like what puts a smile on your face knowing that you're working at Zeta, and you know the topics that go with it?
So you want to take that?
I can start. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is Bill Ryan. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been at Zeta for, I think it's 9 years. I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of mathematical and computing types of problems. And what excites me is when I solve one of those problems, when it's not just a math problem, but it's a math problem that's useful and it works. And you quote unquote build it, and it works out in the field. I find that very exciting, and especially when it works better than someone else's. That's kind of fun too. As we were talking, I wanted to say another thing real quickly. Jacob went through his slides and he mentioned CRC and convolutional codes and list decoding and things like that, and OFDM. And there may be one student among you who says, okay, that's too much. I can't handle any of that. That's overwhelming. But just so you know, I think a year ago, Jacob didn't know any of that.
That's right.
Yes, I can confirm that all the things I presented, basically everything I learned through this experience.
Yeah, and so I think he's probably getting close to, publishing a conference paper maybe in the next few months. And so, yeah, he didn't know any of it, and then he became a very valuable contributor, because it's just hard work and the right background, and of course, intellectual curiosity, as Professor Wessel mentioned. Yeah, that's all I have.
I could
Thank
say,
you.
unfortunately, the nature of some of the work we do, things are classified, but it's pretty common for classified type problems to be like unbearably cool. So I have a couple of projects I work on that it's kind of like mind-boggling that those problems even exist to work on, and then that I get to work on them it's kind of crazy town. So each of my projects alone, I think, is that they're super awesome to think about, and I like going in to work on them. I can't, of course, say what they are, but not like if I worked for a autonomous driving company or something, I could tell you about all these cool things we do with cars. But I can just assure you that the problems themselves are crazy awesome that are available to be worked on.
I love it.
I'll build on that and say the problems we work on have a real impact in the world and make a positive difference in the world, and that is a very motivating feeling, and And in addition to having that real world impact, I work with fantastic people. I learn something new every day. It's engaging. People are very supportive, and it's a great work environment.
Okay, our last contestant.
Yeah, I don't know if I can add much to that.
Oh, sure.
Everything
Go
you guys
ahead.
said was great. Oh no, that's okay. I was just going to say I can't add too much to what they said. It's really true. Coming into work is very exciting. I think, you know, Bill covered building things. I love doing that, making things and watching them go out there and do things that people didn't think were. So it's really and like they already said, the environment's great. The people are great. So it's a really good place.
Great
Okay.
question.
Claire, did you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm just here because it seemed like a cool opportunity to learn a bit more about, like, all the classes that this research and internship is based in are classes I've really enjoyed and would like love to do more with. So I just wanted to hear more about like what the actual experience was like, and I loved hearing about like how excited you guys are about your work and your projects.
Awesome. I think that's a great time, a great place to close. It's 6:02 and I want to honor people's time. I know that some of the students have classes that they need to go off to. Any closing kind of remarks, comments, questions before we wrap up here from anyone?
I want to say thank you. Yeah, have a nice night.
Okay, super. Well, thanks
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you, Andrew. And I encourage all of you, we put all the links and the appropriate emails in the chat. So we encourage you to apply if this sounded like a cool, interesting opportunity for you. And it sounds like, again, you have that intellectual curiosity to do this research and to explore this opportunity. We really do encourage you to apply. The deadline is coming up, I think, next week. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, Dean Wessel. I don't know if you remember it.
November 20th is our application deadline.
Okay, great. So a couple more weeks, November 20th. And if you have any questions, you can email me, follow up with me, or directly with Dean Wessel. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much to the Zeta team for taking time. I know many of you are zooming in from different parts of the country. East Coast is a bit later over there, so really appreciate your time. And of course, thanks Dean Wessel and Jacob for bringing in your perspective from the research lab perspective and the student perspective. So I think that's it. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Bye-bye.